Hi, it's Jo and Steve from Freshagenda. And Steve, this week we're giving a bit of an overview of the outcomes of our June Global Dairy Directions report that was released to subscribers last week.
Yeah, I guess in the big picture, just keeping this brief, that we see the market fairly stable. The fundamentals suggest it's fairly stable when everything's added up and projected forward. So we got declining milk supply in the major producers. Supply and demand is a reasonably balanced picture going out over the next year. When we overlay values on that, you can see we see a little bit of weakness in whole milk powder. We see a slowly rising skim milk powder line, but in general, not a lot of change.
The recent trade trends globally have been fairly strong, though, Steve. What's really been behind that, do you think?
Since the start of 2018, we've seen trade surge, as those charts show, and mostly skim milk powder has been one of the strongest, but we've also seen fat recover. That's been done at low prices. So low prices late last year, early this year have driven that growth in trade. So acid tests, now that prices are a bit firmer, will those trade volumes hold up? And that's all, I guess, part of the considerations looking forward.
So as always, Steve, when you're projecting and forecasting, there are risks in the outlook. So we've got a bit of a graphic here that just highlights some of those key areas and the big drivers.
As that chart shows, everything cascades from the values of fat and protein in Europe. And that affects cheese values, the critical product, everywhere, but also flows across in the whole milk. And whether that has backbone against those lower veg oil prices that impact fat fill product. So we focus on the two big things: demand for butterfat in Europe, and that we've seen is weakening, and seen a little bit of softening in prices lately.
Softening butter.
Softening butter, yes, very good. Stocks are quite tight, but read against that the latest insights on retail sales, and we're just showing you there what some of that latest data shows. That's out of retail scan data. It shows pretty weak situations in Germany, France, but some good old Spaniards are keeping things together. Weighted across Europe, it's down a couple of percent. Commission numbers say it's going the other way. So we probably trust more what the consumer's doing rather than what Eurostat data says in some sense.
So one to watch. Then the other side of that coin is protein value, and obviously the intervention situation is the big driver there for Europe.
Yeah, it's the speed of release of the stockpile, and the Commission says it wants to go faster. So that impacts how much skim milk powder is produced, obviously, in fresh volumes, and again how much butter comes with it. So again, those two are linked.
So we're showing a scenario here from the quarterly that's got that drawdown of stocks, and interestingly, comparing the Oceania S&P price with the European S&P price, there has been a premium there, but we're projecting that that's narrowing going forward.
Yes, as the market trusts there's less blended product or less older product available, that should work its way out of the system and get back to what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and I suppose, the last few weeks we've talked a lot about the trade conflicts that are out there, so we won't dwell on that, but the big risk there is for the US cheese market and stability more broadly.
That's right. Our projection takes account of the fact that we would expect to see some weakness in the Mexican market for the US industry. There's already some build-up of stock there that's destabilised that situation of late. So what's of interest here is where, if the US looks for how to rectify that in the markets, we're just showing there the main cheese markets that are contestable, where we've seen market shares move around.
Yeah. Great. So, Steve, if anyone out there, many fans, wants to find out more about Global Dairy Directions, where do they go?
Just go to our website, and details of what we do, how we do it, and what the options are to participate are available.
Awesome.
So in wrapping up, Jo, chart of the week.
Chart of the week, I know everyone's waiting for it. And this week, it's a chart of the latest Global Dairy Trade event results, which is the biggest fall for the year. not a great way to celebrate 10 years of having a GDT platform, which it's been 10 years since we've had this price transparency mechanism that we all talk about in the dairy industry. So hard to imagine a time before we had this to talk about originally every month, now every fortnight. But I suppose in terms of this week's GDT, maybe some alarm bells from people with such a big fall. Whole milk powder took the brunt of that, but also fat values receded. Probably not time for panic yet, though.
No, it's always a case, while there are shifting fundamentals around, there are those risks. It's a case of who turns up.
Yes.
And who needs something this week, and that's always in the back of, got to be in the back of your mind as to how to read those results.
Yeah, especially a result in isolation. So who's got a full pipeline and who's factoring in that there'll probably be a bit more New Zealand product available in a couple of months. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that's a wrap from us. We'll see you next week.